Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is going to be the debut of a new series that I want to do on my channel. It has to do with examining unusual Beatle records, unofficial Beatle records, rare Beatle records, and I decided to call this, for the moment anyway, Raw Beatle Grooves. Now, I may change the title. If you're watching this video at a much later date after I make it and you see the title doesn't correspond with what I just said, let's not worry about it. But for now, that's what I'm going to be calling the series, okay? Now, I decided that I would go to my collection every once in a while and pick out a record that we could discuss. And I decided to start with this very, very early issue that we received. Now, I think the release of this was 1971 or 72, somewhere around there. And it was called Yellow Matter Custard, the line from I Am the Walrus, of course. And in these very early days, when collectors would come across stuff like this, they probably had no idea that the Beatles used to record songs that were not on their regular albums. I mean, some of the stuff here, now when you hear it, you realize, you say, well, of course, this stuff is the BBC sessions, which is what is on here, recordings from the BBC. But back in the day, a lot of people thought probably these could have even been outtakes. I know when I got a hold of this, the first time I got it was probably in the late 70s. I thought, oh, there's some outtakes here. I didn't really know all about the BBC recordings at the time. What's interesting about this particular copy, and I'm going to go through everything here. This particular copy, I often refer to when I say my original Beatles collection, the Beatles collection that I had in the late 70s and into the 80s and 90s and so on. And then I wound up selling the whole thing. And as a lot of you know, when I made this Mean Mr. Mayo channel in 2011, I was on a mission to try to recapture all the albums, get them all back that I had sold. Well, this particular album, what's interesting is I have a suspicion that this album is actually, this actual copy, this record, is actually the copy that was in my collection originally back in the day, because I went to some store and local store. And when I went there, what I noticed was, I used to keep, and I still keep, my albums in clear outer sleeves, and the sleeve that I had over here, the clear sleeve, it had a bar, kind of like I don't want to call it a barcode, really. That's not the right way. It was a sticker that I used to use. I used to use color coding stickers. I used to go on the typewriter, the old-fashioned typewriters, and I used to put out the titles on there. So I had Yellow Matter Custard, the Beatles, a few details about it, the year of release, and color coding, and I'd stick it on, well, the back of the outer clear sleeve. When I found this in a store in 2011 or 2012, something like that, when I found it, it had the original outer sleeve on it with my sticker on it. So this was probably my actual copy back. Just a little tidbit for those interested in such little things. But I'm going to try to get a shot here, and you're not going to be able maybe to read all those, but they're BBC tracks, and for those who can't make them out, I'll tell you here. I got it on the screen here. We have "I Got a Woman," "Glad All Over," "I Just Don't Understand," the Anne Margaret song. I really like that song. "Slow Down," "Don't Ever Change," "Got a Shot of Rhythm," "Get a Shot of Rhythm and Blues." See, that's another thing I want you to know. I'm reading it by the way it is actually put here. "Shot of Rhythm and Blues." Uh, "I'm Sure to Fall." I'll read it from here. "There's Nothing Shaking." "Lonesome Tears in My Eyes." "Everyone Wants Someone." You see, that's "Everyone Wants Someone" is really "So How Come No One Loves Me." But you see, I should really go by the way it was written on here. This is the way they wrote it. Because back then you didn't even know the titles of the songs. So it was called uh, "Everyone Wants Someone." "I'm going to sit right down and cry." It says here, "Trying" with a T, "Waiting, Hoping," which is "Crying, Waiting, Hoping," Buddy Holly. "To Know Her Is to Love Her." And now there's a song here called "Bound by Love," because again, back then they didn't know the titles of these. "Bound by Love" turned out to be known as the honeymoon song. now. Now, all this stuff that's on here has since been released, really. You can go and get official releases that are beautiful sound quality. Um, so there's really no need for this. A lot of these albums I'm going to be showing, some of them are still interesting, some of them are still vital and important. Some of them are going to be stuff that you don't really have to have anymore, because you just go out and buy Beatles at the BBC Live volumes 1 and 2 today on the actual CDs or vinyl, and you can have beautiful sound quality. Now, this was the top loader here, and you see, a good thing this kind of dripped off a little bit here. They used to have these things in a plain white cardboard sleeve, outer jacket, and you would have a piece of paper, mimeographed and kind of glued on there. That's what we have here. The record, it's a very thick record, and we have something here called Yellow Records. There's the label that I have this on. And the sound quality, talking about the sound quality, if you were to play this today, you'd be very disappointed. But some of the sound varies. I mean, in other words, there's better quality tracks. Some of them are a little rough. Some of them have a kind of like a radio hiss buzz going through them. The source of this is probably the radio. I mean, where else would they have gotten this from? And when the broadcasts were on, originally BBC, somebody recorded them. So the quality varies. It's still listenable, and especially it was very listenable in the 1970s before you had anything else. But by today's standards, not really. A lot of these items I'm going to be showing in this series are just really worth owning. If you're a collector, you want to reminisce, you want to get a piece of nostalgia, that's really the reason to have them now. There's no other reason. But one other note I want to say about this particular release is that I'm pretty sure the rumor is strong that John Lennon himself had a copy of this, because he talked about these kind of records in the BBC Andy Peebles interview that he did on December the 6th, 1980. And in that interview, John talked about, I've heard some of these, he goes, I buy all he's called them pirate records. I buy all the pirate records, and, I keep them. And so the interviewer said, so they're all in mint condition? He said, yeah. He said some of them were well recorded. Some of these BBC sessions at the time, talking about the sessions themselves, were well recorded, not the bootlegs. But he used to send people out. I think May Pang, maybe, I'm not sure, but he would send people out to pick up the records for him at the shops. So he had a copy of this, and or in this particular case, I think there was a story. Someone can explain below. I think there's a story. Like, I'm sorry, the name fails me now. Who the person was who told the story? A fan who had a copy of this, and he made a trade with John Lennon. I think this was one of the albums he traded John Lennon. John wanted to meet with this guy. He found out that he had a copy of this and another album called The Savage Young Beatles. And I believe those were two of the albums John wanted, and he actually gave him in trade a butcher cover that I think was signed by him, Lennon. It's a good story. I'm sorry that all the details escape me right now. I didn't plan on this mentioning that, so I don't have it prepared. But anyway, this is the first in the series that I'm going to call something to the effect of Raw Beatles or Raw Beatle Grooves or something like that. And I hope you'll tune into future installments and tell all your Beatle buddies about this, okay? Take care, everyone, and have a great day.